What's up, guys? Techmaster back with another video. So, Apple just ended their event for 2022. We got a bunch of new iPhones. We got the iPhone 14 Pro Max, all the iPhone 14s, the 14 Plus, the 14, which I'll put here as well. So, today we're going to be seeing which one you should buy today. So, the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus have the same design as the iPhone 13. So they have the diagonal cameras with a couple different colors. It's basically the same. The 14 Plus has a 6.7-inch display, and a couple new features that they added for this year was the satellite connection and crash detection. So that you can get an emergency SOS via satellite. So that's really useful for if you're in a dead zone. And yeah. So starting off with comparing the 14 Pro, the 14 Pro Max, and the 14 Plus. So starting off is the displays. So we have a 6.1-inch screen on the iPhone 14 Pro, 6.7 on the 14 Pro Max and the 14 Plus. We only have ProMotion, though, on the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max. The 14 Plus and the 14 do not have the ProMotion or an always-on display. Dynamic Island, the 14 Plus does not have. They all have emergency via satellite. We have triple cameras on the Pro Max and the Pro, and we get massive upgrades in the camera. We got 48 megapixel main cameras. Like, that's insane. Let's be clear, the main cameras on the other phones were 12 megapixels. That's 4 times better. We have an ultra wide and telephoto, and we have 12 megapixel main for the 14 Plus. Next, optical zoom range, we don't really talk about. Battery life is the best on the 14 Pro Max. We get 29 hours. It's actually an hour and a half to an hour longer than the 13 Pro Max. And the 13, the 14 Pro has 23 hours video playback, and the 14 Plus has the 26 hours. So next, let's talk about performance. So it turns out the iPhone 14 and 14 Plus actually keep the A15 Bionic chip, whereas the 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max have the new A16 Bionic chip, which is the fastest chip in a smartphone. So the iPhone 14 Pluses, they keep the same A15. So they only put the A16 in the Pro. But it's the same, like 5-core GPU, all that stuff. Face ID, 5G, the same. Pretty much the same thing. Yeah. So the display, what's really cool about the new Pro models is that they can get up to 2,000 nits of peak brightness, which is actually incredibly bright, and standard is 1,000 and 1,600. So there's way more brightness options this year versus the 14 Plus. You have the standard like 13 to 1,000 nits and 800 and all that stuff. So we have the A16 chip on the 14 Pro and the 14 Pro Max. Camera, again, we have a 48 megapixel camera as the main, and then the front camera has also been updated with all the 14s because you have the enhanced like stabilization for the front camera for the first time. You have photographic styles. You have macro photography and Apple ProRAW and night mode portraits on the 14 and 14 Pro or 14 Pro and 14 Pro Max, and all that stuff. Yeah, and then all that. Nice that. So yeah, we have a lot more camera features this year too. We have a ton of camera features. So yeah, you have millimeter wave, 5G, cellular and wireless, same stuff pretty much. Works on all the carriers: Sprint, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T. Yeah. And honestly, it's totally up to you guys, but I would recommend Verizon for the 5G because 5G millimeter wave is easily the fastest on Verizon. Like, I'm talking, I got almost a gigabyte, and most other YouTubers get about over a gigabyte, like 1,500, versus T-Mobile and AT&T are like 100 to 200 because they don't really have the millimeter wave. The Verizon one, basically Verizon has millimeter wave, and they like actual millimeter wave. The others don't really have it, so I would recommend Verizon. Obviously, it's more expensive, so you obviously if you don't want to pay much for cellular, then that's totally up to you. But yeah, I think Verizon is the best for 5G, and again, it has the best worldwide coverage because on T-Mobile, there's not as much coverage. Like, it has the best 5G network, but it doesn't necessarily have the most coverage because, for example, I went to a party and up in Calistoga for a friend of my dad's. My cousin had 0 bars of service, and he had T-Mobile of any service, and my dad had 3 bars of LTE. So it's not just like 5G, but just overall coverage is better on Verizon. But that's one of the reasons it's also more expensive. Anyway, moving on. So we got gigabit LTE, Wi-Fi 6, cool, ultra wideband, all that stuff. Video calling, nice. Audio calling, audio playback. Oh yeah. So let's talk about battery life. So we have 26 hours on the 14 Plus, and 23 hours on the 14 Pro. 29 hours on the 14 Pro Max. Video playback is 20 hours or 25 hours on the 14 Pro Max, 20 hours on the 14 Pro and 14 Plus. Now, audio playback, surprisingly, is actually the best on the 14 Plus, up to 100 hours. Obviously, it's not going to be exactly 100 hours, but 14 Pro Max actually has less than the 14 Plus in this case. And then the 14 Pro is the lowest with 75. Yeah. And the 14 Pro looks like it charges the fastest, 50% charge in 30 minutes versus 35 minutes. Sensors. Oh, yeah. All of these. Oh, yeah. And really cool fact, all of these have eSIM support. So they're not compatible with any physical SIM cards. All of the models now have eSIMs. So you don't have to install a SIM. And basically, when you set up the phone, it'll just transfer everything over. You don't have to install a SIM. It's super simple now with the eSIM support. And yeah, that's pretty cool and all that. Anyway, that pretty much sums it up. So, to be completely honest with you, I would probably recommend going for the 14 Pro over the 14 Plus. It's only $100 more expensive, and there's a massive improvements. Like I mentioned, you're getting better cameras. You're getting the 48 megapixel cameras, the newer design. You're also getting this other notch, which has better. You're basically paying a little bit more to get much better features. So the 14, I would say, is definitely the least expensive. To be completely honest with you, I would probably not recommend the 14 Plus. It's a little overpriced, I feel like. Like, look, you're getting a 6.7 inch screen. Don't get me wrong, that's massive. But you're getting the same design as the iPhone 13, basically. Same cameras. Like, the Pros, again, like I mentioned, there's only $100 separating the Pro and the Plus. So I would highly recommend getting the Pro over the Plus because it's only $100 more. You're getting the much better cameras and the newer notch. And this actually is a new camera. We actually expected the 14s to have this kind of notch up here, this new notch. But, yeah. So, some of these leaks were actually ended up what happening. We thought there was going to be a purple color, and it basically looked just like how it was leaked almost. So, yeah, anyway, like I mentioned, though, the 14 Plus would be the one I would least recommend out of all of these. Obviously, the 14 Pro Max is the best out of any means, but, yeah, I think the 14 Plus is a little overpriced in my opinion. So, that's the one I would probably not buy. And then, I think the 14 Pro, obviously, if you have an extra $100 and you're fine with that, you should just get the 14 Pro Max. It's going to be the best overall one. But if you have $1,000 like exactly and you can't spend any more, the 14 Pro is probably the one you should get. Because, yeah, don't get me wrong, the 14 Plus isn't a bad phone, but I would just say it's a little overpriced, I feel like, for what you're getting. Because, Anyway, that pretty much sums up this video, and subscribe to my channel, everyone, if you want to see more of these videos. And see you later.